Hi, my name is Angela Ariano. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing in the state of California. My videos are really here just to help educate people, maybe decrease the stigma. This is general information. Please don't take this at all as like actual therapy or diagnosing, kind of just general information. And I think a lot of therapists put out great videos on helping with grounding and coping skills, and those are great, and those are things I can do also as a clinician. But I kind of want to talk about some of the other parts that maybe we don't talk about, or therapists kind of talk about with each other, but like the clients don't really get to know. So let's kind of get into today. I want to talk about just vulnerability in therapy. I think this is a really common thing that probably prevents people from even going to therapy, or even really sharing about themselves. So some of my other videos, there's a few things we can kind of get into this with. Some of it is, am I comfortable with my therapist? That's key. And I talked about that in another video, being comfortable with them and what that can look like. And maybe when there's, issues with your therapist, bring that up. Another thing could be, is this the right time in my life for therapy? That's actually really common. Of maybe I'm not ready to talk about it. And that doesn't mean don't go to therapy. That means maybe tell your therapist, hey, I I have things that I'm just too scared to talk about yet. And hopefully that's respected by your therapist, and you go at a pace that's safe for you. Um, One thing I try to keep in mind and tell my clients as well is we're going to go at a pace that's safe for you. I love the phrase slow is fast. I learned this in some of my IFS training, and I think it's true for all therapy in general, but I think I use IFS, I use EMDR modalities, and those seem to be very much ring true for those, and generally in therapy. Slow is fast. And I just got the idea of let's think of it too as when we learn a new skill. Like going to therapy is kind of like learning a skill because it's learning to be vulnerable. It's learning to talk about ourselves, learning to sit in our emotions. And it's really difficult at first. And we're not good at it. Like I don't know how to play the piano, but if I were to get lessons in the piano, it would be really hard. And hopefully my piano instructor wouldn't make me play Beethoven within the first week. So as a clinician, I'm not going to make my clients tell me all of their trauma within the first week. That is something I'm not going to do. But I might go, hey, let's just do some meditation. That might seem like, oh, I want to do real work. I want to do real therapy. Why have my therapist tell me to do this? Sometimes we have that, and I see people make videos that kind of complain about that. But what that does is it helps us learn to sit in our bodies. Okay, let's get back to the vulnerable topic of it all, though, because I could talk about some of these things ad nauseum and go all over the place. But really, vulnerability. It is really hard and it is really scary. Please look up, and I think I've mentioned her before, but look up Brene Brown. She has an amazing TED Talk on vulnerability. She can do it so much better than I can, so I'm just going to push you off to her, of how being vulnerable is really just brave. It's the bravest thing we can do. So let's not push it though. You know, Another analogy, if someone's going to battle, oh, you're so brave, you went into battle. You know, they don't do that right away. They go through training and they do all that. Not promoting any type of battle, by the way, but just trying to come up with a metaphor that hopefully makes sense. Um, but when we're vulnerable, it's really hard and it's scary. So sometimes talk about the vulnerability and let's normalize it and how hard and how scary it is. Vulnerability can be worked on. And that's where using smaller steps. I don't have to, as a client, you don't have to be vulnerable day one. We kind of talked about the stages of therapy. We can work on just that rapport building until we feel safe, until we know we're ready. That's what makes therapy more valuable and great. Do not, sometimes people go, well, I'm just going to dive right in. Even though it's scary, I'm going to jump in. Let's not do that though. We don't have to rush therapy. Sometimes depending on, insurance purposes, that's a whole other Oprah we can get into, but don't push vulnerability. Maybe sit in just how hard it is just to be there and just to be in your feelings. It is hard, it is scary, but it's something that you can do. And remind yourself that you're putting in the hard work by even just showing up to therapy. You're doing the work. Maybe you're not sharing everything all at once. That's okay. Share what you can, share what feels safe, and tell your therapist, hey, this is actually really hard and really scary. And hopefully that is received well. And they can go, well, let's pause. And that's where hopefully also in that building stage, rapport building stage, you've worked on some coping skills. I'm going to use some of my coping skills right now because this is just really hard. Vulnerability is normal. It's okay. Find a therapist that you feel safe with to be vulnerable with. And that way you can continue to do the hard work that you want to do and whatever you want to work on. Relationships, life transitions, new jobs, find, self-identity, working on your trauma. That's what I do. I love working on trauma. But slow is fast. If all we've done is say, I've had trauma, sometimes that's the biggest step to take. And kind of just accepting, like, yeah, I've had some hard things happen. So be kind to yourself at the end of every session also. It's really, really important to do that. Vulnerability is a big part of therapy. So making sure you're kind to yourself throughout it all is also just as important. I hope this video made sense. I wanted to keep it kind of light, but I also wanted to make sure that we understood vulnerability. It's okay to be vulnerable in therapy. Sometimes let's just talk about vulnerability and how hard it is. All right, bye.